the first reviews and reactions for it, the review embargo lifted for it, or the reaction embargo and lifted for it, and I hunted, Rob. I hunted to try to find a negative one. Not one. Not one negative one.
Hold my beer.
Remember at the end of The Return of the King, when all those cutscenes were happening? There were so many of them that once the movie was over, I would hear people say, "Man, did it really have to have all those fade in and out scenes at the end there?" Or, "It seemed to drag on for a little bit there at the end." For the next month or two, people would be talking about not only that film, but the other first two as well. And you know what the other criticisms were? Nothing. There was almost nothing to criticize. The only criticisms in my circle was at the end of the first two movies when they came to an end, and only because we didn't want the story to stop. And even at the end of the third film, I didn't mind the multiple fade to black scenes. In fact, you could have added a dozen more and I still would have choked up the same way I did, because I love those films. I love the story of Frodo and the One Ring. Everyone did, which is why any criticism put forth felt like you were grasping at straws. Every character, every location, all the music, all the practical effects, everything. And when it finally came to an end, as gay as this sounds, my heart sank. I couldn't stand the idea that we were leaving Middle-earth, and that this long, incredible story had come to an end. Now imagine with me, if you will, the complete opposite of that feeling. The feeling of utter joy, absolute bliss, the bestowment of eternal life at the end of a long, bland, boring, and retarded journey. My friends, the first season of The Rings of Power has come to an end. Holy ever-living hell, this show was a river filled with concentrated radioactive shit. It had more wrinkles than Gordon Ramsay's forehead.
You're shit. You are so shit you don't realize what you do.
I mean, god damn, it sucked. I made it through 2 full reviews, guys. 2. And after that, I couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to die. But thanks be to God, this putrid dish of regurgitated squid guts has finally died. At least, for now.
And you tell them that Sauron lives because of you!
And you will die because of me!
Alrighty then!
So, in order to keep the Antichrist from rising once again from Amazon's bunghole, what lessons can we learn from this slow-motion car wreck? Well, how about this one? You can place a piece of crap on a plate, cover it with icing and sprinkles, freeze it, stick a bunch of birthday candles in it, and call it a cake. But the moment you take a bite out of it, it's still gonna taste like shit. That's what this show is. It's the epitome of content without substance, quantity without quality. They spent almost $500 million on the first season alone, and countless advertisements, not to mention plenty of mainstream insults calling everyone who criticized the show racist, toxic, and even evil.
But there are always going to be a small yet vocal group of people there can kind of just be toxic.
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to fans, it is a fan's right to have whatever opinion they want to have. And people are going to be upset because, especially when you're talking about books or games, because you're never going to be the exact person who they had in their head or who they played on Witcher 3, for example. I don't necessarily consider that toxic. I just consider that passionate.
And don't get me wrong, each episode is filled with great cinematic shots, more or less, green screen or not. But that's it. That's all this show has going for it. It was nothing more but a show of fireworks lighting up the sky and a grandiose event, but is blown away with the slightest breeze because it was nothing more than just a bunch of hot air, bland, boring, and meaninglessness incarnated into cinematic form. As far as the details of what's wrong with it, well...
Now, shall we begin?
No concept of time, where some scenes seem to take place over only a few days, where others the course of weeks, only for us to find out both happened at the same time. Retarded characters making decisions that have no bearing on the actual events going on around them. Generic fantasy music that could be heard on a PS1 game. Cheap discounted armor and clothing that looks like it was bought at a pawn shop instead of made for a multi-million-dollar production. Constant social messaging where all women are empowered heroes and all men are soy-filled pansies, unless of course they turn out to be Dark Lords. Each group we follow, whether it's the Harfoots, Númenóreans, or common villagers, is filled with plenty of diversity, as such is the standard of 2022. Unfortunately, it makes them all blend together, causing them to feel bland and boring. Oh, and don't forget the forced lines of immigration and racism, because we can't have a single piece of entertainment without being preached at. The writing and the dialogue, which is the foundation of sand this abomination is built on, and Forrest Gump sitting on a park bench talking to random strangers could tell a better story and sound more interesting than this dark abyss portrayed by talentless activists and SJW douchebags. But probably the worst part of this show is that instead of creating a standalone original fantasy series, they decided to piggyback off the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, taking the name brand of The Lord of the Rings along with all the goodwill built up with the fans from both the movies and the books, and selfishly molesting it for personal gain, alienating fans, causing for more division in an already divided culture.
Those people, Pete, those people up there, the rich and the powerful, they do whatever they want. Guys like us, you and me, they don't care about us.
To Amazon, the showrunners, and everyone who had a hand in making this show, fuck you. And to all the real fans who haven't sold out their souls, I say that as the days grow dark and the forces of evil try to corrupt and destroy everything we all know and love, that we band together as one. We aren't unified by superficial traits like gender or skin color, but rather by values and character traits we all esteem as right and virtuous. The same themes we see play out in Tolkien's works, whether in the books or the ones adapted in the original trilogy of films. These themes of redemption, long-suffering, forgiveness, fellowship, and sacrifice. These values are what bind us together, regardless of your race, gender, religion, or creed. The Lord of the Rings has always been for everyone and will always be. And Amazon, as well as most Hollywood writers, wouldn't know the first thing about writing a heartfelt, unifying story filled with these themes and being loved by all, even if one bitch slapped them right in the face. And I say, my friends, if we're going to get burned for calling out this woke crap, then I say we all burn together as one. Anyways guys, as always, thanks so much for watching and have a great freaking day.